A very busy show tonight. Is it morally wrong to be rich? I'll speak to a top entrepreneur and US author who's written a book in defence of wealth. In the big question, should Britain ban smoking? Is it time for us to stub out our filthy habit? Or is it the nanny state gone mad? And in my big opinion, it's time for regime change in America, because if America falls, we all do. I'm sorry, folks, but Biden is not up to it. Plus my all-star panel, the game show and alternative news headlines. But first, the real headlines with Olivia.
Thank you, Mark. Here's the latest from the GB newsroom. Boris Johnson has told President Zelensky the UK is committed to stepping up military, economic and diplomatic support for Ukraine and will advance their interests at NATO and G7 meetings this week. It's after the Ukrainian leader compared the Russian invasion of his country with Nazi Germany's final solution. I should warn you, there are flashing images in these pictures. Hundreds of anti-war protesters gathered outside Israel's Knesset as Volodymyr Zelensky's video address was broadcast to Parliament. He questioned the country's reluctance to sell its missile defence system to help Ukraine and asked why heavy sanctions haven't been imposed against Russia.
Israel knows well that the Iron Dome, your missile defense system, is the best. We know that you know how to protect your interests and that you can definitely help our people. The choice is yours to make, brothers and sisters, and you must then live with your answer. The Ukrainians had their choice 80 years ago. We saved Jews. Therefore, we have between us the righteous among the nations, the people of Israel. Now you also have a choice.
Meanwhile, Foreign Secretary Liz Truss says she's appalled at claims Ukrainian captives are being shipped to forced labour camps in Russia. Fighting is said to be ongoing in Mariupol after an art school where around 400 people were taking shelter was bombed. Ukraine's Deputy Prime Minister says over 7,000 people were evacuated from cities today, including almost 4,000 from Mariupol. Former head of the British Army, General Sir Mike Jackson, told GB News he can't rule out the possibility of World War III or the use of nuclear arms.
It seems to me the only way that we can bring this dreadful war to an end is for Putin to accept that his original aims are unachievable.
In other news, police have arrested a man on suspicion of murder after the death of a teenager in central London. 22-year-old Maher Marouf was found in the Clerkenwell area following a manhunt. It's believed the Tunisian national had been in a relationship with 19-year-old Sabita Tanwani, who was found with fatal neck injuries at her student accommodation yesterday. A woman has been charged with murder after a body was found buried in a back garden in Northampton. The remains are believed to be those of a missing 42-year-old man. 48-year-old Fiona Beale will appear at Northampton Magistrates Court tomorrow. TV, online and DAB+ radio. This is GB News. Now it's back to Mark.
A very good evening to you. It's Sunday, the 20th of March, and you are watching and listening to Mark Dolan tonight. We've got a jam-packed show for you this evening. Entertainment, stimulation and debate in equal measure. We don't do boring, not on my watch. I just won't have it. My Mark Meets guest is an absolute corker tonight. Is it morally wrong to be rich? I'll speak to a top US entrepreneur and author who's written a book in defence of wealth. It's a fascinating topic, and we will bring you my panel's views on that one as well. In the big question, should Britain ban smoking? Is it time for us to stub out our filthy habit? We'll speak to one of the world's leading experts on quitting smoking. But is it the nanny state gone mad? And in my big opinion, it's time for regime change in America. If America falls, we all do. Find out why shortly. Plus my all-star panel reacting to the big stories of the day. This evening, broadcaster, journalist and author Nikki Hodgson. Also presenter and journalist Ingrid Tarrant. And columnist and commentator and war hero Andre Walker. Plus we've got the game show, my alternative headlines, and tonight they feature Hugh Grant, no less. A-listers, folks. Sorry, celebrities, you can run, but you can't hide. You won't want to miss those headlines just after the real headlines at 10. And Sunday is always a very special day for this show because it's officially Selfie Sunday every Sunday. That's right, this time every week, I want to see you and I want to get to know you better. So send in your pictures, ideally watching the show, but any which way, and we can get to know each other even better. Send in your Sunday selfies. We were so busy last week that we didn't have a chance to get to many of your fantastic selfies. So here are a few from last week's show to whet your appetite. This is gorgeous Ariella. Thank you for watching the show. Kim Ellen. There she is. What a lovely selfie there. Margaret. There she is getting it done. But where's Mark Dolan tonight? I'm sure that she's got her telly on mute. Linda and Charles. Oh, blimey, I didn't realise Charles was a horse. Congratulations, Linda. Takes all sorts, doesn't it? And how about this? They're calling themselves Team Dolan. There you go. Those are my brilliant producers. So do get your selfies in. We love to have them. The email address, as always, is mark@gbnews.uk. A jam-packed 2 hours. You won't want to miss a second. It is Sunday night, so fire up the kettle and stick a couple of hot cross buns under the toaster with a nice cold slab of salted butter, and let's get to work. There's an old saying, when America sneezes, the world catches a cold. Well, America is now on life support, which means we're all in trouble. To say America is in the wrong hands is, in my view, an understatement. Here is the increasingly unhinged leader of the House, Nancy Pelosi, reading a poem.
To drive out those old snakes once again. And they struggle for us to be free from the psycho in this human family. Ireland's sorrow and pain is now the Ukraine, and St. Patrick's name is now Zelensky. About that.
What the hell? Bring back Pam Ayres. All is forgiven. Here's the Vice President, Kamala Harris, a woman who terrifyingly is second in command.
A friend in need is a friend indeed.
Okay, I can first.
And where do you start with President Joe Biden? Take a look at this from last year.
But there's, there to be, beginning this effort for 2021 is, I think we've learned a few lessons from last year as well. There's help being there to help clear roads, rebuild main streets, and so that the families can get back to their lives. You are in a position of extraordinary
power. Sleepy Joe strikes again. We'll get a translation of what he said for you later in the show. Having spent $16 trillion, that's right, $16 trillion on their overreaction to the pandemic, that's $50,000 for every American, the US economy is shot to pieces. Unemployment, household debt, fuel prices and interest rates are heading upwards. And inflation, currently running at almost 8%, will likely reach well into 2 digits before the end of the year. For too long now, the great nation of America has been living high on the hog, with the public and the state gorging on borrowed money, which to date has cost the Federal Reserve next to nothing, given America's stellar credit rating and the huge advantage of the dollar being the world's reserve currency. But like so many great empires, the US has begun to sow the seeds of its own destruction. America has been caught napping, asleep at the wheel. Decades of underinvestment and short-term thinking mean that America's infrastructure, once the envy of the world, is falling apart. Roads, bridges, airports are all creaking with age, just like their president. And America's insatiable diet for borrowed money was the catalyst behind the disastrous credit crunch and global downturn in 2009. But just over a decade later, and nothing has changed. America, a magnificent country, and one I love dearly, has been living high on the hog, on the never-never, and has been focused on jam tomorrow, although they call jam jelly, which is very strange. But the whole American project is beginning to wobble, with no smart long-term plan for the future, no vision. All we've got is indulgence, complacence, and decay. Compare that to the Chinese, who have built airports, motorways, rail lines, power stations, nuclear plants. They've moved into mineral-rich Afghanistan. They've bought half of Africa. They also own billions of dollars of US debt. What could possibly go wrong? And they have prepared their economy for the 21st century, fueled by Western shoppers paying for consumer products we should be making here ourselves. America's disastrous overreaction to coronavirus, where common sense only prevailed in a handful of states like Florida, has accelerated this great country's decline and potentially gifted control of the world to China. China taking over as the world's predominant superpower should have been decades away, but now it's just years, if they haven't won already. Why is this a problem? Well, for all of those America haters out there, and there are too many, be careful what you wish for. America is a beacon of diversity, innovation, creativity, freedom and democracy. But the leader of the free world, the US president, is about to hand the baton to a cruel, heartless and ruthless totalitarian dictatorship. One which tortures and murders its own people, crushes dissent, which gave us COVID and lied in the early days of the pandemic. China is a country with no free press, no political discourse, no criticism of the state, no elections. They back Russia's evil invasion of Ukraine, of course, and place no value on human life. Do you really want these guys in charge? Soon, I fear the independent country of Taiwan will be another jewel in their crown. If America falls, we all do. Do you think the bumbling EU are going to save us? Good luck with that. And look at the state of the United States. Divisive identity politics mean that people are more worried about their pronouns than their future, letting biological men thrash women in the swimming pool. Take a look at this ridiculous photograph. It's a scandal, and it's just plain embarrassing. We now have an America that has junked its values of personal liberty. This amazing story as well will shock you. The Health Commissioner of New York has announced 5-year-olds should wear masks forever. Well, it's not New York anymore, is it? It's New Beijing or New Pyongyang. America's great institutions are in the full grip of a woke takeover, with universities teaching something called critical race theory, which essentially says that homeless drug addicts with barely $1 in their pocket have white privilege. Racism is the most evil thing imaginable, and America has a shameful history on that one. It must be addressed, but not by giving in to the hard-left communist outfit of Antifa, the toxic and corrupt group behind Black Lives Matter, who disgracefully stole a great slogan that few would disagree with. They want to break up the nuclear family, end capitalism, and defund police forces, which, surprise, surprise, when enacted, has caused an explosion in crime. America's great cities, Los Angeles, New York, Seattle, and many others, are dying on their feet. Hundreds of thousands of homeless people are living in tent cities across the country, openly shooting up on streets which were once posh boulevards, all strung out on spice, heroin, and crack cocaine. And America's democracy is in crisis too. We had the disgraceful and violent assault on Capitol Hill on January the 6th, 2021. And with question marks around postal voting, millions of Americans are unsure they can actually believe any result that happens now. Would Joe Biden have become president if the liberal US media had properly investigated the contents of that laptop and Biden Jr., Hunter Biden, and his alleged links to the Kremlin? You tell me. Which takes me to Biden Sr. Senior being the operative word. The Democratic Party should hang their heads in shame that they selected this decrepit man to lead the free world. This is a guy who gets lost going into his own house and who thinks Russia invaded Iran. But he's not responsible for the long-term decline of America. America's wars, for example, have been a disaster for decades. Vietnam, Syria, Libya, Iraq, of course, and latterly Afghanistan have come at a needless cost of money, lives, and fermented hate. America's disastrous exit from Afghanistan established the theme of surrender, which is now American foreign policy. America is also in the grip of a public health crisis, with over 60% of adults overweight or obese. The US is not fighting fit. Even their soldiers and cops are too fat to serve. To me, it's all a question of leadership and statecraft. Joe Biden, Kamala Harris, Nancy Pelosi, is that the best they've got? America is a great country and it can bounce back. And here in the UK, we need them to. A rejuvenated Britain, freed from the clutches of the EU, should once again inspire this great nation that we ourselves founded. We need to return to that special relationship, an umbilical and emotional connection between two great and powerful, freedom-loving democratic nations. Like when these two presided over an economic miracle and the end of the Cold War. That's right, Thatcher and Gorbachev, of course with the help of Reagan. So all of that can only be achieved with great leadership. The next president will arguably be the most important in America's recent history. They've got to get this right, because America is fighting for its position of global preeminence. If America wants to keep calling itself the greatest country in the world, it's going to have to start acting like one. We need someone to enter the White House who, to coin a phrase, can make America great again. Reacting to the big stories of the day is my amazing panel tonight. Very excited to welcome back to the studio broadcaster, journalist and author Nikki Hodgson, journalist and presenter Ingrid Tarrant, and columnist and commentator Andre Walker. If I could start with you, Nikki, do you think America has fallen?
Well, if you say America has fallen, when did it fall? I think it's really important to say, Mark, that for the past decade, and actually more recently, that past 5 years, we've been dealing with Trump's legacy. So anything that you put in at Biden's door was, inculcated a few years ago. It's not necessarily everything that he's done since he came to presidency.
Well, of course, many people point out that Donald Trump negotiated that deal with the Taliban to leave Afghanistan in such a clumsy manner.
Well, he wasn't the best of statesmen, was he? He certainly wasn't a discreet person, and he wasn't very good at negotiating. So again, it's something else that America's been left to inherit, to deal with.
However, Nikki, Donald Trump was in power for 4 years. He didn't start any wars. He presided over an economic boom and a rejuvenated, more confident America.
But at the cost of the poorest people. The gap between the poorest and the richest has widened during that time. And a lot of what Joe Biden is now dealing with, the social problems, are things that got worse under Trump.
Ingrid Tarrant, do you think America has fallen?
Yes, I do. And I think it's going to fall further and further down. I don't agree with you, sorry, Nikki, about Trump. I think he ought to have the Nobel Peace Prize because he picked up the phone to Yoon Kim-ung and he said, come on, let's talk about this. I think he would have done the same with Putin. I think this would have been resolved very quickly. On the economic world platform, of course, the fall is all to do with what's happening in the rest of the world as well, which is not helped, of course, by this oil crisis, and everything is traded in dollars. So that's not helping their cause either. But I can't see, while Biden's there, I can't see it getting any better. And as you said, sort of like the other women that are behind him and beside him, it's actually laughable. It's pathetic.
Yes, I mean, Andre, I couldn't find the Chinese Communist Party, that regime, more loathsome. But unlike America, they seem to have global ambitions and a vision for their country.
Yes, that's right. And of course, what we have spent our lives talking about is equal but different. We need to be able to say that there are some people in this world who are manifestly evil. There are some systems that are inferior. You know, democracy, freedom, the right to own your own property is a superior way to live than socialism, communism, and indeed what Vladimir Putin practices. God knows what that is. And we need to be honest about that. But here is the problem with the United States of America. We can talk about electoral fraud all day. The Democrats deliberately put up a useless old man to shine up the creatures that lurk within the Democratic Party. Like the Labour Party in the United Kingdom, no longer interested in working class people, obsessed with hobby horse, trans this and race that. Actually not interested in making the poor richer, much more interested in their own pathetic student union politics. And of course, what is this all about? Put Kamala Harris into power, even though she probably wouldn't have been elected on her own. It really is a scam.
Well, that's right. And Nikki, I don't think this has to be left versus right or Democrats versus Republicans. I just think America can do better than Joe Biden.
Well, I just think Joe Biden's inherited what he has. This has been going on for years. It's not just Joe Biden.
But he's not up to the job, Nikki.
Catastrophizing and demolishing things overnight. As you said in your soliloquy, Mark, that this has been going on for more than a decade. That is very important.
But he's not up to the job. That's what concerns me.
But why isn't he up to the job? I mean, OK, so he had a snooze. Boris Johnson's done that as well.
Oh, no, but he's not with it.
He's got to be...
I think what's really important to say is that Joe Biden does have experience. That's the thing that...
Too much experience. I mean, this is a guy who's got to be reminded... He's got to be reminded every morning by his advisors that he's president.
Mark, he was put there because he was incapable.
Exactly,
That's exactly the point. And that is what, look, I don't have a problem with a little old man. I hope to be one myself in the fullness of time.
But not running England.
But the point was, they knew he was terrible. They couldn't stand up against Donald Trump and admit what a shambles their political party had become, so they put a nice old fool up there in order to control him from the back. That, I believe, was the great electoral fraud of that election.
Ingrid, how do we fix America? Because I think we can all agree, all four of us, that if America falls, we all do.
Yes and no. I just think we've become so dependent on America. And exactly right, you know, just as we all catch a cold. I don't think we should be as dependent as we have been in the past, because what happens there does control very much what happens in the West world, and particularly in the UK. I mean, if they could actually get rid of the dollar so that the trading isn't done in that anymore, and perhaps have that more, I'm not going to even say euro, I think that's kind of like a dirty word as well, but I don't know where this is going to go, but it's certainly not going to go anywhere good with Biden still there. But he is being operated, so if you get somebody sort of like, you know, behind the throne whispering in his ear that has some power and clout, maybe they can turn it around and we'll have a better future.
But Ingrid, isn't part of the problem here? We talk all day about Western values. What rubbish! You know, French values, German values, Spanish values have given us really not the great freedoms that we have. It's the Anglosphere values, it's British values that are important. The value of the United States of America is not that it's a country, it's that we are the Anglosphere together. You know, you look, the second the European Union got their hands on a couple of quid, they basically abolished democracy. We have to accept that this idea of Western values, this idea of equal but different, is nonsense. The Anglosphere has made the world better and it needs to continue.
Apart from the role of the French in the American Revolution. Well, you've forgotten about that.
I mean, if you think that the American Republic is an enforcement of French law, then good luck.
Nikki Hodgson, how do we save America? Because I think, as I've mentioned in my big opinion monologue, that it's about leadership and statecraft. I'd like to see someone like Ron DeSantis in the White House, because he showed great leadership and courage in his handling of the pandemic in Florida. He unlocked Florida a year ago, cases fell, and he was vindicated. How do you think we should save America?
Well, isn't part of the problem that China has risen despite America's failure, not because of it? So isn't it just that China was always going to overtake America at some point?
But don't you think America has let it happen? First of all, amassing so much debt and not investing in their infrastructure and not thinking about the future.
But maybe America doesn't want to be the leader anymore.
Well, there's a question.
That's controversial.
I think you'll agree. We are travelling business class with my panel tonight. So excited to have Nikki back in the studio. We've missed her hugely. And, of course, my good friends, Andre Walker and Ingrid Tarrant. They'll be back very shortly for the news agenda with a simple question. Do we need a fourth jab? What do you think? Mark at gbnews.uk. And in the big question, coming up right now, should we ban smoking or is it the nanny state gone mad? We'll speak to one of the world's leading experts on helping you quit the fags. So we've got that. And don't forget to get those Sunday selfies in. Mark at gbnews.uk. I've got some ready for you after this.
GB News is the UK's home of discussion and debate
from all perspectives.
To stay up to date on the latest stories,
make sure that you subscribe to the GB News channel
right here on YouTube.
You can watch us live 24/7 across the whole world.
You can also check out exclusive content and catch up on previous episodes of your favourite shows.
Every day, we ask the questions
that you'd ask, so why not add your voice to the conversation in the comments section?
Don't forget to subscribe. We are GB News, Britain's news channel.
Every night at 11 on GB News, we bring you the next day's stories the day before.
It's basically like time travel.
If it's a big story, we'll cover it, guaranteed. But we'll also have some fun along the way.
Big opinions, big laughs. Sometimes big hair.
This is
Headliners, the paper review show that won't send you to sleep like the others will.
11 p.m, 7 nights a week. Join us.
Hello there, I'm Eamon Holmes.
And I'm Isabel Webster.
And we hope you can join us for
Breakfast with Eamon.
And Isabel.
You make me laugh out loud, belly laugh.
Is that important first thing in the morning?
Yeah, absolutely.
And there's me trying to be deadly serious. News is a serious business.
Yeah, I have to rein you in sometimes.
Well, it doesn't stop us laughing at it. It doesn't stop us having an opinion on what's going on.
Yeah.
And it certainly will not stop us reflecting what you think.
Weekdays from 6 to 9:30 on GB News.
I'm Dan Wootton. Join me Monday to Thursday from 9 to 11 for the feistiest and most fun news debate on TV, where free speech reigns. I'll bring you a sharp take on the day's biggest stories, bombshell newsmaker interviews, and A-list guests. And I guarantee you, no spin, no bias, no censorship, and no reason to go to bed. That's Dan Wootton tonight, Monday to Thursdays from 9 on GB News.
How do we fix America? Jackie has emailed the show. Easy, Mark. Republicans back in power in 2024. Trump policies with Ron DeSantis as president. Interesting stuff. How about this in regard to the West's decline? And this is from Michael. Hi, Mark, your monologue was spot on. However, it's the entire Western democracies that are in decline. Let's just have a quick look at this. To arrest the decline, we have printed money to disguise the shift of wealth to the east. And until we recognise this, we're likely to continue to live in a fool's paradise. A catastrophe collapse is on the cards. And the first signs are the Saudis ditching the dollar in favour of the Chinese yen. Thank you so much for that. Look, we'll get to more of your tweets and emails. Maybe just this from Camille, who says, Dear Mark, absolutely brilliant opening about America. Sleepy Joe is such an embarrassment and Kamala is laughable. Well, she does like a giggle, doesn't she? Now, let's have a look at some of your selfies. It is Selfie Sunday. This is Robert and Anita. Let's take a look. What a gorgeous couple. Lovely to have you on board. And also Brenda. Where are you, Brenda? Look at that. And she's so loyal. She's got me in the background. Thank you, Brenda. I think actually one or two of those might have been from last Sunday. We were so busy last week when we launched Selfie Sunday that we didn't get to all of them. So thank you, Brenda. Keep them coming, your Sunday selfies. Pets, kids, furniture, whatever you like, as long as it's not too X-rated. Mark at gbnews.uk. Denmark are to ban the sale of cigarettes to anyone born after 2010. Now, is this a smart way to tackle the public health impact of smoking? Or is it an example of the nanny state gone mad? Should we have the right to abuse our body as we see fit? So here is tonight's big question. Should Britain ban smoking? Is it time to stub out this filthy habit? Well, to debate this, I'm delighted to welcome a world-renowned expert in the treatment of smoking and other addictions. John Dicey is the Global Chief Executive Officer and Senior Therapist of Alan Carr's Easy Way worldwide. He himself was an 80-a-day smoker and had tried many times to quit using every method he could find, but nothing worked. In 1997, he attended Alan Carr's famous clinic in London, and to his surprise, he left the clinic a happy non-smoker. He wound up taking over the management of the business after Alan's sad death, and he personally went on to treat in excess of 30,000 people. He is the co-author with Alan Carr of various books on addiction, which have sold millions of copies worldwide, all branded as Easy Way. And I'm delighted to say John Dicey joins me now. Hi, John.
Hi, Mark.
John, we all know what a struggle it is to get off the cigarettes, although you've invented the Easy Way, which I can highly recommend from personal experience. But wouldn't the best way to get people off cigarettes be to ban them?
Yeah, I can't take credit for the method. That's all down to the great Alan Carr. But yeah, certainly he would be most disappointed with the idea of banning smokers, just because I mean, smokers are pushed around and bullied so much and have been for so long. we've always felt it's much better to provide effective ways of helping smokers to stop rather than to browbeat them and bully them, basically.
Well, that's right. So you kind of like to have a consensual approach to people quitting smoking. Is that right?
That's right. Yeah, I think it's. It doesn't sound sort of very illiberal, the idea of banning people from a certain age from buying cigarettes. And it might seem unusual to have somebody who helps people quit smoking be less than supportive of the idea. But it really is. It's a bit of I think it's a real turn off for smokers. I think youngsters are putting up with enough after the last couple of years throughout the pandemic and dealing with housing problems in the UK and what have you. Just seems another sort of a strange sort of almost attack on them rather than just focusing on helping them to quit and preventing them from starting, which obviously is the idea of this age ban. But I just don't see quite how effective that's going to be, given that all sorts of drugs are banned, but it doesn't stop youngsters getting hold of them.
Well, yeah, I mean, that's the issue. Isn't access the point, that if you make it harder for people to get hold of cigarettes, they're less likely to smoke them?
Yeah, I just don't think it's going to be particularly hard for people to sort of beat the ban. I think it's sort of almost throwing down a challenge to them. And pretty much anywhere in the UK, you can get your hands on cocaine, cannabis, ketamine, whatever you want, fairly easily, regardless of what age you are. So I don't quite see how practical this is.
So how is it that you help people to quit smoking? What is the process, John?
Well, really, rather than sort of focus on telling smokers that it's killing them, costing them a fortune, controlling their lives, smokers know that already. They don't need to be sort of told that. We look at the other side of the argument and say, well, why do we continue to smoke in spite of these tremendous disadvantages? So we analyse every possible reason or justification a smoker might have for carrying on smoking, analyse each of them with the smoker, and actually have them realise that they've been fooled into thinking that smoking gives them all these different sort of benefits and elements of pleasure. They're based on misconceptions and fake beliefs in what smoking can do for you. Once you understand that actually you've been fooled into doing something with faulty information, you don't need willpower to stop doing it anymore. You just realise you're free and stub out your final cigarette and away you go.
So what is unique about the easy way approach? What is the psychology that you adopt to help people get off the cigarettes, but also sugar, smartphone, gambling and vaping, all of which you've written books about?
Yeah, I mean, the first thing we ask people to do is just carry on smoking. Don't try to stop until you understand how to do it. And it takes about 5 or 6 hours for a smoker or any addict of any sort really to take on board the method, which is very simple. As I say, just looks at all the arguments for smoking and dispels them, and gently leads smoker to the conclusion that actually there really is no point in doing this, and that they'd actually be much, much happier being free from it. So it's really, we're not trying to scare smokers out of stopping. There's no sort of shock treatment or anything like that. It really is a case of sort of looking at it logically, realising you're not actually getting anything out of it, understanding why you think you do get something out of it, and then the compulsion to smoke goes.
So would banning cigarettes or criminalising them, would it actually be counterproductive? Might it make cigarettes even more attractive for those rebellious people out there?
Yeah, almost certainly. Certainly, the younger people are, the more attractive it might appear to be when it's banned. And I say prohibition has never really worked in most places that it's been tried. And existing sort of drug use in this country sort of indicates the same. We have a cocaine epidemic across the UK, and no sort of legal action affected towards that seems to be having an impact on that. So really what we're looking at is education. Alan Carr's easy way is a drug-free method of treating an addiction. I think that's really important. We've just been helped.
I've got to say that I read the Alan Carr smoking book miraculous. You read the book, you don't look at a cigarette ever again. Remarkable. Obviously, I will say, if you're having trouble with any addiction, speak to your GP first. That's the best port of call. But from personal anecdotal experience, the Alan Carr Easy Way method is fantastic. It's very positive. It's very, very simple. And it has worked for millions of people around the world, hasn't it?
Yes, 50 million people and counting. So it's made up of 3 different elements, really, that you can use: a book, online video programs, or live group seminars. And we're just in the process, so it'll be about a year into the process of helping the World Health Organization to assist with their smoking campaigns in places like Suriname, East Timor, the Philippines. We're still sort of pushing with the Department of Health to have us help people in East Fife and Feltham, rather than just East Timor and the Philippines.
Well, your website is alancarr.com, A-L-L-E-N Carr, alancarr.com. That is the addiction guru, not the stand-up comedian. Let's bring my panel into this, if I can. Nikki Hodgson, Ingrid Tarrant and Andre Walker. Ingrid, do you think we should ban cigarettes?
Oh, God. I smoke.
Whoops.
I know, whoops. Oh, gosh. Yes, I suppose in one sense. When my children, you see, it's like, do as I do, not as I, no, do as I say, not as I do. I said to my children, and I didn't want them to smoke. Well, 2 of them do, but not very much. And I just said, I wish that you hadn't started. That's all. So if we could prevent, the people from smoking in the first place, that would be a better thing. Banning smoking for the people who already are, me, that's an altogether different thing. I would like to give up, but I think you have to really, really want to. And I don't really want to. I'm not a heavy smoker. I'm not an 80-a-day smoker or anything like that. So, and I actually do enjoy it. And I know what John's saying is like, what are you getting out of it? Well, I am getting something out of it, and I don't know quite what, but I actually So yeah, for the children that going forward, I would prefer that they never took it up in the first place, because it is addictive.
Well, Ingrid, I'm sure that John can sort you out with a discount
you're
ready, when you're ready to see him. John, what about this Danish idea, which is simply to make it unavailable to anyone born after 2010? Isn't that a clever solution, which is the people who are not hooked aren't able to have cigarettes? Surely that's an idea.
Yeah, I mean, it seems like a good idea on sort of principle, but I just think, as I say, prohibition tends not to work wherever it's tried, and doesn't work with sort of existing drugs in the UK as it is. So it sounds good, like a good idea. Price rises are another way that people use the authorities use to try and control smoking. I think in Australia, cigarettes are £20 a packet at the moment. So I should imagine we're going that way as well. Although I think a couple of weeks ago there was a proposal that maybe there'd be a price cap on cigarettes, which would actually reduce the amount of profits the tobacco industry would make from a sale of cigarettes, which might be another way of doing it. So lots of interesting ideas coming out, but I think education is the way to prevent youngsters falling into addiction. I think once someone understands the nature of addiction, they're less sort of vulnerable to it. So education rather than prohibition is probably where I'd go, and providing that sort of access to effective ways of stopping smoking.
Here's an email for you, Andre Walker, and it's from Caroline, who says, "Dear Mark, yes, we should ban smoking as it causes heart disease, cancer and emphysema. I've known heavy smokers who have died from all of these diseases, and one woman I knew had such bad emphysema, she relied on oxygen 24/7. That doesn't sound like something that should be available over the counter.
No, my mother was a classic example. The average woman dies at 83. The average smoker dies 10 years earlier. She died at 73. I, too, gave up with the Alan Carr method. And hello to Mark Keane from Lancashire, I'm sure is watching. I don't understand.
Can he help you with your other addictions, by the way?
Hey, we can't talk about that on air, Mark.
Kebabs.
No.
Red wine. Big Macs. Quarter pounder with cheese. Pringles.
But of course, what Alan Carr really said was this: there are two addictions, aren't there? There's the societal addiction that says that smoking is absolutely fantastic, and there's a minor physical addiction. I've not read the book on how that applies to heroin, but I'm sure John has found a way to get it round. But I think the fundamental point is this. There will always be a drug of choice for people. Cigarettes are particularly dangerous, but I worry now about things like skunk, as an example, which has a huge effect on mental health and is obviously very concentrated because it's brought into the country. But similarly, when I smoked age 12, my mum could smell it on me. There's all sorts of vapes now that you can ingest all sorts of stuff. I think people will always have an addiction, but I think smoking is particularly bad. I personally wouldn't ban it because I really think it's out the door anyway.
What do you think about this, Nikki? Does it seem like a bit of a heavy-handed policy, just banning the stuff?
Yeah, it does to me. It seems illiberal, actually. And even though it is harmful, terribly harmful for people and very pernicious, but I agree with John. I would go the way of just putting the price up, double the price, triple the price, and then use some of those profits to take care of people, educate and help people stop.
But can I just say this, because I think it is. Look, I'm just going to be an evangelist for Alan Carr for a second, because I think it is important.
Please don't sing.
Alan Carr's fundamental point is smoking is crap. Right? If you stop smoking for a week, you will no longer be physically addicted. These people who go, I gave up smoking 100 years ago and that's rubbish. It's physically not possible. What happens is, the condemned man, what is the last thing you want? Nice girl, pint of lager, a cigarette. We've just got to get out the idea that it's any good.
I think that's a very good
price. Can I just say something with the price? They say
hurry up, because I think you're going to have a cigarette. You're going for a fag break.
The richest are likely to hit the target if the price is going up by 2025, but the poorest in 2040. The poorest will still pay the money, but they'll be the worst.
Cigarettes have never been for the rich; they've been for the poor.
And therefore the price, so they'll suffer even more. So there'll be less food on the table.
I think that's a really fair point, Ingrid. It's important to understand the impact of any policy. John, let me finish with a couple of emails. This from Jane. Thanks for your email, Jane. Jane says, hi, Mark, I'm fed up of being told to stop smoking. If I do quit, it will be in my own time. The government makes a lot of money from cigarettes, so they need to stop going on about it. Great show as always. How about this from Stephen? Don't ban smoking. Raise more taxes through it. If smoking was banned, who would pay the taxes? What about that, John?
Let's find a way.
Well, it's about £10 billion a year, I think, in tax gathered through nicotine. That'll probably be replaced eventually by nicotine taxes on vaping and that kind of thing, which is very much on the rise. But yeah, it's a real issue in terms of how do we get through to people like the lady you mentioned is really fed up of being hounded. And I think that really for her, the idea is absolutely right. You can stop smoking in spite of the pressure being put on you, not because of it. And actually, it's a great incentive, actually, to think. I think it's 80 to 90% of the money you pay for cigarettes goes to the government in tax. Who wants to pay more taxes?
And on that note, we can definitely agree. What a treat to have you on the show, John. John Dicey is behind the Alan Carr Easy Way method. To find out more, just go to alancarr.com or you can check out their books. There are weight loss books, Easy Way to Quit Smoking, Control Alcohol, Emotional Eating, Smartphone Addiction, and much, much more. John, let's catch up soon. Great to see you on the show after all these months. Fascinating conversation. We will return to your emails about that. Don't forget, it is Selfie Sunday, so send in your selfies. I want to get to know you better. I want to see you. So, Mark at gbnews.uk. Lots of pictures piling up on the system. Very excited about my Mark Meets guest tonight. We're going to speak to a top US entrepreneur and author who's written a book in defense of wealth. But is it morally wrong to be rich? We'll discuss that after 10. But next in the news agenda, do we need a fourth jab? See you shortly.
GB News is the UK's home of discussion and debate.
From all perspectives.
To stay up to date on the latest stories,
Make sure that you subscribe to the GB News channel.
right here on YouTube.
You can watch us live 24/7 across the whole world.
You can also check out exclusive content and catch up on previous episodes of your favourite shows.
Every day, we ask the questions
that you'd ask, so why not add your voice to the conversation in the comments section?
Don't forget to subscribe. We are GB News, Britain's news channel.
Every night at 11 on GB News, we bring you the next day's stories the day before.
It's basically like time travel.
If it's a big story, we'll cover it, guaranteed. But we'll also have some fun along the way.
Big opinions, big laughs. Sometimes big hair.
This is
Headliners, the paper review show that won't send you to sleep like the others will.
11 p.m, 7 nights a week. Join us.
Hello there, I'm Eamon Holmes.
And I'm Isabel Webster.
And we hope you can join us for
Breakfast with Eamon.
And Isabel.
You make me laugh out loud, belly laugh.
Is that important first thing in the morning?
Yeah, absolutely.
And there's me trying to be deadly serious. News is a serious business.
Yeah, I have to rein you in sometimes.
Well, it doesn't stop us laughing at it. It doesn't stop us having an opinion on what's going on.
Yeah.
And it certainly will not stop us reflecting what you think.
Weekdays from 6 to 9:30 on GB News.
I'm Dan Wootton. Join me Monday to Thursday from 9 to 11 for the feistiest and most fun news debate on TV, where free speech reigns. I'll bring you a sharp take on the day's biggest stories, bombshell newsmaker interviews, and A-list guests. And I guarantee you, no spin, no bias, no censorship, and no reason to go to bed. That's Dan Wootton tonight, Monday to Thursdays from 9 on GB News.
Well, we've got an amazing Mark Meets guest live from the United States, an entrepreneur and author who's going to defend wealth. But what do you think? Is being rich immoral? We'll discuss that after 10 o'clock. Plus, we've got another great British game show. We've got some alternative news headlines tonight featuring Hugh Grant, who has been linked to the Doctor Who gig. So we'll discuss that shortly. And it is Selfie Sunday. We've got more selfies coming in. This is Matt and Martin. What a fine pair of gentlemen they are. My goodness, look at that. That's a pair of lads. That's a pair of studs. And also, how about this? It's a Sunday selfie with a doggy on the sofa.
Look at that.
Oh, yes, I think that was... We had that. We
Which
saw
one's
that.
the dog?
Well, I'm definitely drooling looking at that. What a gorgeous picture. Well, look, thank you for sending those in. Do keep them coming. Sunday selfies. But it's time now to look at which headlines are breaking and what will be in tomorrow's news agenda. So let's get my panel in on this. We've got Ingrid and Nikki and Andre. Boris Johnson has already given clearance for over 75s and vulnerable groups to receive their fourth jab, their fourth vaccine this spring. Ministers are now concerned over the waning effectiveness of previous vaccinations and the rise in infections across the UK. So what do we think, folks? Is it time for a fourth jab? Do we all need it? Ingrid?
No, we do not. We absolutely do not. I mean...
Get your arm out.
Yeah.
Do it for Britain.
I would never
Save
do that.
the NHS.
No, I wouldn't do it to save anyone apart from my own life. If I thought it was good and it was benefit, I would do it selfishly, but I know that it's not, and therefore I'm not going to have the jab ever, ever, ever.
Are you completely unvaccinated?
Yeah, completely.
To think I hugged you earlier.
I know. But look, you're all right. You're still alive, and so am I.
I feel a bit dizzy, I'll be honest. I think I need a cigarette. I might get back on the fags.
I might give up. No, I haven't even had COVID or signs of COVID, and I haven't been vaccinated. Listen, it was follow the science, wasn't it? That's what Sage was saying. The science doesn't support what Sage was saying. The real science does, of the experts, and really we should listen to that. But, you know, I've become so cynical about absolutely everything. I mean, I've got somewhere what the statistics are. Oh, I haven't got it exactly here. But I think Boris has ordered 658 million doses.
Yeah.
They've got to be used up. Put them in an arm. You can't put them down the sink, can you?
Yeah, you can.
Yeah, no, I don't think you can. I think you will then get all sorts of toxins in the ground and every plant and flower.
Well, they have a shelf life. They have a shelf life, haven't they? I think the Germans have signed up for 5 years' worth of vaccines.
Yeah, yeah. Do you know,
Like putting their swimming towels on the sun lounger.
yeah. But we've gone the same way. We've all done that. We've invested heavily in all these things. And there are 6 different, well, in one newspaper it says there's 6 different ones. In another newspaper it says there's 8 different types of vaccine, including what hadn't even been properly tested in the very first place. But they still haven't been approved. It's still under emergency use. There's still side effects.
Oh, there's nothing wrong with that.
No, come on. And also there's...
Yeah, but Andre, you'll take anything. Look at you.
No, do you know what? I'm going... Everyone always comes on this program.
You're like a lab rat.
Somebody always goes...
like a guinea pig.
Somebody always goes, I've been quadruple vaccinated. Do you know what? I'm one of the people who fully supported the vaccine programme and just couldn't be bothered. Right? I don't have any great...
Are you unvaccinated as well?
Yeah. Look, stick my face. Go on.
Nikki, how's your immune system?
Well, I think it's very robust because I've had 3 jabs personally.
I think it's because you've been in this TV studio with these two.
Yeah.
We're
giving you natural.
You can only catch hepatitis once, don't we?
Yeah,
we got balance. I'm triple jabbed, but I want to get out of
this. That's an average of 2 each.
Well, then you're the person to ask, Mark. Yeah. Would you go for the 4th? Do you see any necessity in having the 4th jab?
Absolutely not. If I can avoid it, I will.
Good.
But if it means visiting my in-laws in Austria...
and that's what I think. If it means keeping us unlocked, I will do it for greater public freedom. I'm happy to do it.
But that is one thing that I think is really wrong and dangerous, even though I appreciate why you're saying it.
It's deeply wrong.
This concept,
deeply wrong, but I still would do it.
This concept that if you do not do this, then you'll be placed under house arrest. Do you know something?
Blackmail.
To be fair, our country hasn't distinguished between the vaccinated and the unvaccinated in exactly the same way that maybe Germany has and some other countries.
I genuinely think, look, I'm not comparing Britain to Nazi Germany, but it is a fact to say that the prohibition of mandatory medical treatment was written into the constitution of this country and indeed across the world after what took place in Nazi Germany. I have a right over my own body. I'll tell you all I did with the vaccine. I just couldn't be bothered. I live on my own. And I was one of the people, I've admitted this before today, where the lockdown was really bad. I was on the pizzas and vodka for breakfast and all that sort of thing, which a lot of people did.
Well, mine was a much more terrible decision because it was too new.
But then the other thing was this. I started to get belligerent about it. I started saying, I'm bloody sick of people telling me what to do with my own body. And now I just don't care anymore. I just don't care. I've had Omicron. I'm all right.
I just wish that from the start, Nikki, the authorities had said, here's the vaccine, it's there if you want it, here's what COVID is, here are the risks, and take it or leave it, as we've done with every other vaccine, including the flu vaccine. Wouldn't that be the way to go?
Well, that would be the way to go with hindsight, knowing what we now know, which is actually the majority of people haven't been affected that severely when they've had COVID, and we didn't know that at the beginning. That's the issue. Remember how terrified we were in March 2020? You know, people were terrified to touch the rails when they were going through the corridors of things. And we were frightened about the air. We were frightened about people in proximity to it.
My hands were red for about 3 months.
Absolutely. So that's what we've got to... We can't forget what we didn't know.
But Mark.
But the vaccine didn't come in till, what, the summer,
no, but
autumn
our knowledge,
of 2020?
Of course it didn't, but the knowledge that we had about COVID was very gradually increasing, but not for the first 6 months. We were still very, very nervous, and we still believed fully that the only way out of this was through the vaccine.
And now we
absolutely believe.
But there's a fundamental problem with all of these discussions about the vaccination. If you look at HPV, amongst teenage girls, the take-up is 87%. If you look at the BCG, what is the take-up? 89%.
Oh, that's
the take-up of the coronavirus vaccine is over 90%. And yet we spend our lives listening to these whining saddos telling us that the take-up wasn't big enough. You know, if the most successful vaccine rollout in the history of this country was not a big enough take-up, then why are we not...
Yeah, but this is what Nikki says.
But when Boris has, you know...
Well,
kind
not
of
you,
said,
but plenty of people did.
Well, I can't think of somebody off the top of my head. I don't know if you can.
I met loads of them. I met loads of them.
People on a personal level.
Vaccines, you're killing my children. Oh, what sad individuals.
Right, but just what I think really important thing to say about this, what does Boris know that he's not telling us? That's the only thing I'm thinking about this story. What do they all that we don't know about?
Nothing.
Well, of course.
Yeah.
He doesn't know anything.
Yeah. Well, it's coming out now.
Just be mindful of that. That's all I'm saying.
What do you mean by that?
Well, is there another variant coming that they already have warning of that we don't know about?
Well, of course there's going to be. It's
Look at what's happening in China. Look at what's happening in Hong Kong. You know, they're having terrible problems again with coronavirus. It could.
I'm sorry, I
think
it's a lot of propaganda. I mean, they've said all along, Omicron is just, it's going to get weaker as it goes down.
But there's still a chance that it could have
flu, and the flu has different strains. And actually, flu is more dangerous,
Ingrid,
actually, than
Well, the flu kills more children than young people.
There was a point in this country, and let's just be clear, where of the people who were entirely healthy, who had no pre-existing conditions, the cost of the treatment of coronavirus was £1,000 million per death. What an obscenity.
Yeah.
When we sent everybody out, eat out to help out, or get a pizza for half price, and then shut the bars and restaurants anyway. What we have done is incinerated £1 trillion. It's absolutely offensive.
And we've conned. I say they have conned all of us.
Oh,
in
you
the
pay it back,
process.
Ingrid. Don't you worry. You're going to end up paying it back.
Yeah, we all are. That's the tragedy.
The issue I think we've got is that I would suggest, Nikki, that there are a generation of politicians and government scientists who are now wedded to this idea that the vaccine is our way out of the pandemic, which I think has proved to be a false narrative, right? I welcome the vaccine. I think the data's clear that it's prevented serious illness and death, and for that, it's a blessing.
Yep.
But my view is that anyone healthy under 50 doesn't need it.
But isn't part of the problem the fact that we haven't vaccinated the world? So one of the things that's really important about the strains mutating, etc., is because we've got huge swathes of people that haven't even had one jab yet.
Because we're using them here.
No, but we've just said that we've got a bunch of vaccines that we're not using.
But why
you should
can't
get
the
on
government-
COVAX and donate them.
I agree with you.
No, we don't, but they don't want them in the third world countries. They don't want
That's really not true. There's
Yes,
so
it
many
is.
places that
Levels,
would
it's
like the vaccine.
Ingrid, we have quadruple vaccinated 18-year-olds and left grannies in the third world with nothing. It was immorally wrong.
Yeah, but they're
Morally
doing
wrong.
better than we are.
Morally wrong. No, they're
Well, that's not
Yes,
true.
they are.
Why can't the
Yeah, they are.
Why
In India,
can't,
then they did ivermectin instead. They didn't
why
need to
can't
have
the
this.
Department of Health say only vulnerable groups need this, and even then it's voluntary?
Well, because at the beginning, now it's different, but at the beginning, the
But why
point
can't they
was we
change-
didn't know how
Right,
transmission
but
would
now
work
we
and
do.
who would...
The vaccine doesn't stop transmission.
No, the vaccine doesn't stop transmission, but it changes transmission and it changes the duration of the period of what you have COVID for, and it changes the latency.
But that would be in relation to a mild variant, which is Omicron.
That's true. But
So
it won't be
don't you
mild
think
for
it's time
everyone.
for them to change
But Mark,
the script? Because they're still saying you need the vaccine.
Mark,
I'm sure you don't.
It's also a very important point that there have been some very fit, healthy people that shouldn't have got really sick and died, and they did. And the point
Because
being
of the
that
vaccine.
we don't... No. There are people that were not vaccinated, that were gym goers and all the rest of it. They've been well accounted for. The point is that we don't know how it affects an individual before it affects them. We can't... It's like a lottery in that sense.
I think it's gone on too long, and I think that the specialists are seeing, they are following this, they are studying it, and they are watching it with a very close eye. Also, the other thing that's come out is a lot of these figures that are saying the deaths from COVID, they're questioning that now completely, because those figures are completely wrong. They're overinflated, and they admitted that...
The Mail newspaper reported that this week.
Exactly.
Yeah,
And but this has only just started to come out. This has been coming out amongst the people, amongst the virologists, the doctors, the scientists, the professors, the everything. They knew this, but the press weren't printing
Well,
it.
briefly, Nikki, has the vaccine, which, as I say, I have welcomed, and I've had it, but has it been oversold? And have its risks been underplayed?
Well, we don't know yet, do we? Because we've still got to do more experiments and research on it. I mean, I have...
Oh, but that's the thing, experiments and research. It's all experimental. I don't know why you're just buying into this so
the reason,
easily, readily.
Because this is what I thought, Ingrid. This is why I took the vaccine. Because when I looked at the probabilities for me and the balance of what I thought was better for the future of me and everybody I cared about, it was better for me to take the vaccine for everyone.
But can we now scrap that
I'm
now?
thrombophilic, so I was at risk for taking the vaccine I took.
Really?
Of having a blood clot, and I still did it because I still thought that was the better thing to do, and that was my personal decision, obviously.
Okay.
And I
Do you know
don't
what?
think you should
Let's come
have
back
it. You
to
don't
this.
want it, you know?
Let's come back to it, because we've got to pay the rent, but we'll come back to it. It's a very interesting conversation. I'm triple jabbed. Andre hasn't had the vaccine, but he's definitely on something, and he's back in the next hour. We've got Mark Meets, alternative headlines, and my amazing panel, plus your emails, and it's Selfie Sunday, and you're going to love some of the selfies we got. See you shortly.
GB News is the UK's home of discussion and debate.
From all perspectives.
To stay up to date on the latest stories,
Make sure that you subscribe to the GB News channel.
right here on YouTube.
You can watch us live 24/7 across the whole world.
You can also check out exclusive content and catch up on previous episodes of your favourite shows.
Every day, we ask the questions
that you'd ask. So why not add your voice to the conversation in the comments section?
Don't forget to subscribe. We are GB News, Britain's news channel.
Every night at 11 on GB News, we bring you the next day's stories the day before.
It's basically like time travel.
If it's a big story, we'll cover it, guaranteed. But we'll also have some fun along the way.
Big opinions, big laughs. Sometimes big hair.
This is
Headliners, the paper review show that won't send you to sleep like the others will.
11 p.m, 7 nights a week. Join us.
Hello there, I'm Eamon Holmes.
And I'm Isabel Webster.
And we hope you can join us for
Breakfast with Eamon.
And Isabel.
You make me laugh out loud, belly laugh.
Is that important first thing in the morning?
Yeah, absolutely.
And there's me trying to be deadly serious. News is a serious business.
Yeah, I have to rein you in sometimes.
Well, it doesn't stop us laughing at it. It doesn't stop us having an opinion on what's going on.
Yeah.
And it certainly will not stop us reflecting what you think.
Weekdays from 6 to 9:30 on GB News.
I'm Dan Wootton. Join me Monday to Thursday from 9 to 11 for the feistiest and most fun news debate on TV, where free speech reigns. I'll bring you a sharp take on the day's biggest stories, bombshell newsmaker interviews, and A-list guests. And I guarantee you, no spin, no bias, no censorship, and no reason to go to bed. That's Dan Wootton tonight, Monday to Thursdays from 9 on GB News.
Coming up, my alternative news headlines, exclusive news about who is going to play the next Doctor Who. Also, my Mark Meets guest is a US entrepreneur and author. He's an amazing guy. He's called Derek Bullens, and he's written a book in defence of wealth. What do you think? Is it morally wrong to be rich? Plus, we're going to play another great British game show. Tonight, we're going to play the wokest link. Find out what that is very shortly. But first, the news headlines with Olivia.
Good evening. Here's the latest from the GB newsroom. Boris Johnson has told President Zelensky the UK is committed to stepping up military, economic and diplomatic support for Ukraine and will advance their interests at NATO and G7 meetings this week. It's after the Ukrainian leader compared the Russian invasion of his country with Nazi Germany's final solution to exterminate Jews. A warning: the video we're about to show you contains flashing images. Hundreds of anti-war protesters gathered outside Israel's Knesset as Volodymyr Zelensky's video address was broadcast to Parliament. He questioned the country's reluctance to sell its missile defence system to help Ukraine and asked why heavy sanctions haven't been imposed against Russia.
Israel knows well that the Iron Dome, your missile defence system, is the best. We know that you know how to protect your interests, and that you can definitely help our people. The choice is yours to make, brothers and sisters, and you must then live with your answer. The Ukrainians had their choice 80 years ago. We saved Jews. Therefore, we have between us the righteous among the nations, the people of Israel. Now you also have a choice.
Well, Russia's defence ministry says Ukraine has until the early hours of tomorrow morning to give its answer on surrendering Mariupol. It's after an art school where around 400 people were taking shelter was bombed in the besieged city. Ukraine's Deputy Prime Minister says over 7,000 people were evacuated from cities today, including almost 4,000 from Mariupol. Former head of the British Army, General Sir Mike Jackson, told GB News he can't rule out the possibility of World War III or the use of nuclear arms.
It seems to me the only way that we can bring this dreadful war to an end is for Putin to accept that his original aims are unachievable.
General Sir Mike Jackson. In other news, police have arrested a man on suspicion of murder after the death of a teenager in central London. 22-year-old Maher Marouf was found in the Clerkenwell area following a manhunt. It's believed the Tunisian national had been in a relationship with 19-year-old Sabita Tanwani, who was found with fatal neck injuries at her student accommodation yesterday. And archaeologists have uncovered 5 ancient tombs in Egypt's Saqqara necropolis just outside Cairo. Dating back more than 4,000 years, some of the tombs are complete with burial shafts. They contain well-preserved paintings, statues and pottery. TV, online and DAB+ radio. This is GB News. Now it's back to Mark Dolan.
Coming up, we're going to play the most woke, politically correct game show tonight. It's called the Wokest Link. Find out why we're playing that later on in the show. My brilliant panel are coming back. So many emails complimentary about the team on the sofa tonight. How right you are. They are brilliant. Also, we've got my alternative news headlines and my Mark Meets guest very shortly. He's written a book in defence of wealth. He's an American entrepreneur. So what do you think? Are rich people morally wrong? We'll discuss that shortly. It's also Selfie Sunday, because I want to get to know you better. We've got a growing army of viewers, so let's say hi to each other. You see enough of my ugly mug, so let's see your gorgeous visages. And first of all, we've got Robert. Look at you, you handsome devil, Robert. You look a lot better than I do. I'm like 4 eyes. I look like Joe 90, and you, on the other hand, rather fetching in your black T-shirt. Thank you very much for that one, Robert. How about this? This is Shirley's cat, Stroppy, in Kent. Oh, I'm loving that. She's not enjoying the show. She looks like my fiercest critic. She's going to get her claws out. Oh, we love Stroppy. Thank you for that, Shirley. We'll get to... Oh, we've got another one. We've got Tory, the pug. I wonder what his politics are. Look at that bar humpug. He is gorgeous. And oh, it's Tory. I don't know if that means that Tories are conservative or is that short for Victoria. But either way, I love that gorgeous pug. What a cute little puppy. Thanks for those Keep the Sunday selfies coming in. I think we're going to do it regularly because it's just so much fun. It's great, as I say, to get to know you. So it's time now for my alternative news headlines. We brought you to the news yesterday that the model Bella Hadid had a nose job when she was 14 because she felt uglier than her sister Gigi. That's right, she had a nose job when she was 14. Well, I'm delighted to say that my team have been working night and day to secure more exclusive before and after photos of the nose job. Are you interested? Here's what she looks like now. So let's have a look at this lovely lady. What a beautiful nose she's got. Lovely eyes, great bone structure. And this is her before the operation. Oh, my goodness. Scary stuff. Actor Hugh Grant is in the news. He's being tipped to play the Time Lord Doctor Who. That's right, he might become Doctor Who, taking over from Jodie Whittaker. Competition for the role was fierce, with Mr. Grant almost being beaten to the job by this tree. It was a close-run thing. We asked the tree's agent for a comment, but he told us to leave him alone. He wants to branch out. Bella Hadid and that nose. Here's what she looks like now. Take a look. Such lovely eyes. Fantastic genetics, I think you'll agree. Great bone structure. And here is the after. Oof, that's gotta hurt. Nanny, please help me. David Beckham's also hit the headlines. He has launched an eyewear range, which we're calling Beck's Specs. Although the range has proved to be a bestseller, it's been a blow for the football ace, who is now able to see how ridiculous he looks all the time. Ouch, the truth hurts. Vladimir Putin has wowed fans this week with a variety of fancy outfits, including designer puffer jackets, expensive tracksuits, trainers, and a luxury watch. Far from being the leader of Russia, he looks like he belongs in the Hollywood set, which is why our team have been hard at work coming up with ideas for Vladimir Putin's possible movie career. So here goes. How about this? From Russia with Love, The Good, the Vlad and the Ugly, Putin on the Ritz, Apocalypse Now, Suicide Squad, Fantastic Beasts and Where to Find Them, brackets, Moscow, Parasite, Russian Hour 2, The Lying King, Honey, I Shrunk the Economy, and Those Terrifying Critters Are Back in Kremlins 2. Nicely done. One last look at Bella Hadid and that nose job. Here she is now. Just a beauty. Big eyes. I'm loving the ears, by the way. Excellent mouth and, of course, a perfect nose. But here she is beforehand. Yeah. I write the songs. And those folks are your alternative news headlines. Relight my fire. Anyway, let's move on. It's time now for Mark Meets, in which I speak to the biggest names in the world of politics, showbiz, sport and beyond, and those who simply have a big story to tell. With widespread concern about billionaires around the world not paying their fair share of tax, and with various countries in the West cracking down on Russian oligarchs and their dirty money, it begs the question, is being rich morally wrong? Are wealth creators an important part of our economy and wider prosperity? Or is the idea that wealth trickles down to the poorest a total myth? Well, to answer this question is my Mark Meets guest tonight. So excited to meet Derek Bullen. He's the author of the best-selling In Defense of Wealth. He is the CEO of Connecting Human Potential to Meaningful Work, and he is the CEO of the best-selling World magazine. Look, this guy has made a few dollars and he joins us now. Derek, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Mark. Good evening. Nice to
be here.
Now,
why did you write, Derek, this book, In Defense of Wealth? Why is this book required reading?
You know, really, Mark, why I wrote it is the real story is the wealthy pay far more than their fair share of taxes. The top 10% of income earners on the planet pay the majority of the taxes. As the rich get richer, millions of people are being brought out of poverty every year. No one's talking about that one. And the wealthy, the people that create wealth, create most of their wealth for everybody else. They only keep a very little of it. Even the wealthiest people that we could imagine, like Bezos and Musk, the vast majority of what they're creating for society and the world, and most of their companies are global. And I would say lastly, the CEOs of our largest companies, they're not overpaid for the wealth they create. They make less than our top athletes, musicians, and actors, and they create billions in wealth that goes into societal benefits, schools, roads, institutions like that. That's why I wrote the book.
Well, how does a billionaire buying a yacht or having a fortune sitting in a bank account help poor people, Derek?
You know, it's interesting. The myth is that as the rich get richer, the poor get poorer, but it's not true. You know, if you look at, we had 15 billionaires in 1980, and today we have almost 3,000 billionaires. And the percentage of the global population living below the poverty line has declined from 45% to 22% in the same time. And the trend continues downward. This is the first time in modern times that we've had less than 1 billion people under the poverty line. And if you look at the money that they make, let's just take a look at Amazon, let's just say. So Amazon's an easy one. It's easy to always bring it up. So we decry Jeff Bezos to say Jeff Bezos made 57 billion. Well, he didn't make it. The company he created and the 10% that he owns rose in value, 57 billion. But at the same time, for all of Amazon's shareholders, Bezos made $500 billion. That's $500 billion. And who owns that 90% that Jeff doesn't? It's banks, it's insurance companies, it's governments. And so if there's a teacher in California on a pension, or if there's somebody who's getting a home insurance claim for a fire, if there's somebody who's getting a loan for a new car, there's a little bit of that $500 billion in net worth that Jeff Bezos brought to everybody else in society. And at the end of doing that, bringing everybody $500 billion, yeah, he got 57 billion for himself. He can't use it yet. He'd have to sell his stock. And if he did, he'd have to pay taxes, like Elon Musk. Elon Musk sold some of his stock last year, and he paid 11 billion in personal income taxes. So this is what I'm saying, is that these CEOs, these mega rich, it's not the buying the yachts, it's how much money they make for society, make for the globe, and how many more people come out of poverty because of it.
Although, Derek, when you get that rich, aren't you able to employ great accountants and lawyers to help you pay a smaller percentage of your income than somebody that cleans an office?
You can delay paying your income, and the income you get is different. For instance, in the States, Warren Buffett said, my secretary pays more tax than me. She doesn't. He pays much more tax than she does, but she pays tax at a higher rate. She gets paid a salary, and the majority of taxes come from that income tax you pay on your salary. Warren Buffett doesn't pay himself much at all. Warren Buffett gets most of his income in dividends or in capital gains, and those are different rates for everybody. If you have a house, in England, and you sell it and you get capital gains, you pay a lower rate than you would on your income. So it's like that.
So what are the key findings, Derek? What are the key findings in your book? What surprised you when you wrote it?
What surprised me when I wrote it was how many people are coming out of wealth, and also the knock-on effects that you have of that. As people were making more money and creating larger and larger companies, they were employing more and more people, not only here but globally. For instance, let's get back to Amazon. They pay $46 billion a year in salary, have 1.6 million in employees. And then as companies in the UK, in the United States, here was the other thing that surprised me. As they grew, and as these, like Dyson that you had, start creating jobs, they start outsourcing and doing trade with different parts of the world. And that's bringing jobs to women all over the world where jobs weren't there before. For instance, in Bangladesh or in India, 50% of the workforce that's doing the business process outsourcing or working in factories are women who were previously unemployed, and these are new jobs. And so we're not only raising the standard of living globally, but we're also giving meaningful work to half of the world's population that otherwise didn't have it. That was one of the things that I found out. The other thing that I found out is wealth is an equal opportunity game. 70% of the billionaires around today, or the millionaires around today, made it in their lifetime. The thinking is, they all inherited it, and there's some island where we all go and there's money there and you can keep your money forever. No, most people made it in their lifetime. And then the last thing that I learned that was surprising, 70% of them will lose it all by the time their grandchildren are adults. It's hard to make money, but it's even harder to keep it. And yeah, it's just such a counter to socialism. I also found out that the wealth tax doesn't work. You remember in the UK, probably in the late 70s, they had that 98% tax on everybody. It just promotes a gray economy and people taking their primary residence elsewhere. That's what they did in France until Macron repealed the wealth tax recently. They were all leaving. So some of those things, my book is full of these things. What you think about the rich is probably not correct. And every chapter of my book deconstructs the myths with what really is happening.
Well, let's bring my panel in, if we may, Derek. We've got Nikki Hodgson, Andre Walker and Ingrid Tarrant, and they're all going to contribute to this conversation because I think it's a fascinating one. Nikki, forgive me if I speculate that your politics might be centre-left or certainly centre-ground. What's your reaction to Derek's message?
I'm really interested in what Derek says about us not knowing the truth behind how people get rich and stay rich. I think that's really fascinating. But I am concerned about the idea that, especially in Britain, it's a bit different in America right now, but in Britain, we've got 1 million people using food banks in the past year, and child poverty is the worst it's been in 10 years. If generally people who are making more money are letting it trickle down, what is happening there? Why doesn't that add up?
Derek? We're just reconnecting with Derek at the moment. Don't worry, he hasn't ducked out of the conversation. we just that was very convenient. I mean, perhaps I could let Andre Walker answer that because I suspect, Andre, that you would possibly push back on what Nikki had to say there.
Yeah, I think Derek really didn't hit the important point. The vast majority of people in this country are similarly wealthy. Capitalism is about choice. And so there are billionaires and there are people who are on-street homeless. But the vast majority of us are fairly similarly wealthy. But what we get the opportunity to do is make our own decisions about how we spend our money. And I think that is absolutely the critical thing. The other thing that I think Derek missed, and I don't want to have a go at him when he's just been logged off for a second, is in reality, the vast majority of these assets that make people like Elon Musk wealthy are hypothetical, theoretical, if you like. It's, if I manage to sell my shares, would I be worth this amount? If I manage to do this, would I be worth that amount? Very often, the reason that grandchildren have lost the money of their grandparents is because they couldn't manage the company. And so the company was worth £10 billion, but actually it was never sold for 10 billion. And when the company tanked, they lost everything. So I just think what we've got to remember is the most important thing, which Derek did say. Well, he alluded to it. We have lifted 1 billion people out of poverty since 1990, and I honestly believe we'll lift the rest out of poverty in the next 10, 15, 20 years. But that is done by the technological innovation that capitalism drives along. You look at the way that awful scourge of socialism and the way that it destroyed the prosperity, the happiness, the dignity, the reason of our society. If we bring that back on the altar of all being similarly poor, that will be a disaster.
Ingrid, some people just think it's deeply immoral that a billionaire can go out and buy, let's say, a Lamborghini for £200,000, which is more money than a lot of people will make in 2 decades.
But it's all relative, because somebody who couldn't afford to buy a Lamborghini or a BMW would think the same way. That's obscene. They can only afford a 10th hand banger. It's all relative. They've got the money. That's kind of, petty cash to them, but it's not for others. And going on to that, I mean, it is creating an awful lot of work. This is where I think, my father always used to say, don't kill the goose that lays a golden egg. And it makes absolute sense, because you do that, and then everybody's going to suffer as a result of it, because there's nobody feeding it, there's nobody keeping it going and perpetuating the wealth stream and everything. Whatever somebody earns, and he's used Amazon, which is actually, it's the go-to, isn't it? A lot of people complain that they didn't pay the right level of corporation tax. Funnily enough, I didn't really mind that, because it's an incentive to be here and not take it elsewhere. But they are paying their employers, who are paying taxes, and that goes into the street. And that goes into society.
Their employees are treated terribly.
But they have a choice.
They don't have a choice. That's the whole point, Ingrid. They've taken the job because they can't find other work, because it's the best of bad options. They don't have time to take bathroom breaks. They get sick. They can't take time
Nikki
off for
finish.
that reason. And, the reality is, loads of people in employment isn't the solution if they're all in poorly paid jobs. More than half people in this country that claim benefits are already working. That means work is not working.
That's absolutely right. Gordon Brown made this country a client state where we put everybody on benefits so people could get away with paying poverty wages. By the way, the points that you just heard about toilet breaks have absolutely nothing to do with wealth creation. If you want to improve employment rights in this country, you do that. But that doesn't have anything to do.
If you want to keep someone alive, you let them go to the toilet. It's really simple.
Sorry, but let's just be clear. Going to the toilet has absolutely nothing to do with wealth distribution in this country. It's moronic to say that.
Nikki Hodgson, uninterrupted, please, Nikki.
If you can't go to the toilet and you have a severe health problem, you will lose your job and you'll be even poorer. It's very simple.
Yes, I mean, we certainly have heard companies like Amazon accused of such working practices, although they have always denied it. Delighted to say Derek is back for the final word. Derek Bullen, thanks for rejoining us. Look, Derek, how do you see this one playing out? What is the future for the wealthy? Because in the 80s, earlier in my monologue at the start of the show, I was talking about the golden era of Thatcherism and Ronald Reagan, trickle-down economics. In the 80s, it was encouraged to get rich. Britain was very aspirational. The middle classes were expanded massively. Working class people were able to buy their council house. And in America, greed was good. Do you think that's under attack now?
I do think it's under attack. And Mark, I wasn't able to talk to you, but I was able to hear some of the panelists. And just in response to some of the things that were said, in the United Kingdom right now, the largest source of revenue is income tax. It makes out about 30% of the total, followed by the national insurance contributions at around 20%. 25% of all income tax revenue is paid by the top 1% of taxpayers in the UK. So a quarter of all the roads, hospitals, institutions, schools, that's courtesy of the 1%. And I also heard some talk about Amazon and taxes. And Amazon is the poster boy for, how do you get away with all of this? They're not really getting away with much. The United States has three things that work in Amazon's favor. They have an R&D tax credit that was started in 1981 and made permanent by Obama. If you spend $1 million in R&D, you can take $1 million off the tax owing. Amazon invests $42 billion in R&D every year. That's 2/3 of NASA's budget. And the spin-off is amazing. The jobs are amazing, and there's jobs for everybody. Amazon has over 25,000 patents globally. The second one that Amazon works on to not pay taxes is they get tax credits for going green. So Amazon co-funded the Climate Pledge and Global Optimism and recruited others, including Microsoft, Uber, Verizon, JetBlue, Best Buy. And so when they spend money on going carbon neutral for 2040, they get a tax credit for that. And then there's a Tax Cuts and Job Act. So as they write off capital and buy new gear to create more jobs, they get a tax credit there. So that's Amazon's spending money on things the government wants to encourage companies to do in order that they don't pay taxes. Where do I think this is going? I think that countries will always be competitive on their tax rate to attract the wealth creators. I think when countries lose their wealth creators, it's incredibly expensive. The wealth tax in France made about 26 billion in total. This is US dollars, but lost about 125 billion every year that it was in place until Macron repealed it, because capital can move to more competitive countries and more competitive tax rates. So I think the incentive is still on. It is in the free world and democratic world to make money and do well. And I think countries will compete for wealth creators to either bring themselves or bring parts of their organizations to other countries.
Derek,
I think it'll always be a healthy dynamic.
Yeah, Derek, very, very briefly, only a couple of seconds, but when will we learn that socialism doesn't work?
When we start teaching the other part in school, that if you want to go socialist, 90% of you will be poor and you'll be starving. Since Venezuela went socialist, they have 90% poverty, and the average Venezuelan's lost 26 pounds. And they have the third largest oil reserves on the planet. They should all be wealthy. It's when we start teaching that side of socialism.
What a treat to have you on the show, Derek. Do come and see us again, live from the United States. I think it's about 4 in the afternoon, 5 in the afternoon in the US, in Los Angeles. Been great to have you on the programme. Your book is out now. Yeah. I urge everyone to buy it so you can get even richer. The book is called In Defence of Wealth, a modest rebuttal to the charge the rich are bad for society, by Derek Bullen. Hey, listen, do you disagree? Let me know. mark@gbnews.uk. Also, keep those Sunday selfies coming in. I get very excited when you send me your pictures. We've got more for after the break. Next up in our news agenda with my brilliant panel, we'll talk about the return to the UK of Nazanin Zaghari-Ratcliffe. A wonderful news story, I think you'll agree. But will she struggle to get used to domestic family life? We'll discuss the implications of her return to Britain shortly. We've also got another great British game show. Tonight we're going to play a game called the Wokest Link, because we're going to play Britain's most woke game show, find out why, just before 11. Also, more topics for our news agenda and your emails and selfies. See you shortly.
GB News is the UK's home of discussion and debate
from all perspectives.
To stay up to date on the latest stories,
make sure that you subscribe to the GB News channel
right here on YouTube.
You can watch us live 24/7 across the whole world.
You can also check out exclusive content and catch up on previous episodes of your favourite shows.
Every day, we ask the questions
that you'd ask, so why not add your voice to the conversation in the comments section?
Don't forget to subscribe. We are GB News, Britain's news channel.
Every night at 11 on GB News, we bring you the next day's stories the day before.
It's basically like time travel.
If it's a big story, we'll cover it, guaranteed. But we'll also have some fun along the way.
Big opinions, big laughs. Sometimes big hair.
This is
Headliners, the paper review show that won't send you to sleep like the others will.
11 p.m, 7 nights a week. Join us.
Hello there, I'm Eamon Holmes.
And I'm Isabel Webster.
And we hope you can join us for
Breakfast with Eamon
and Isabel.
You make me laugh out loud, belly laugh.
Is that important first thing in the morning?
Yeah, absolutely.
And there's me trying to be deadly serious. News is a serious business.
Yeah, I have to rein you in sometimes.
Well, it doesn't stop us laughing at it. It doesn't stop us having an opinion on what's going on.
Yeah.
And it certainly will not stop us reflecting what you think.
Weekdays from 6 to 9:30 on GB News.
I'm Dan Wootton. Join me Monday to Thursday from 9 to 11 for the feistiest and most fun news debate on TV, where free speech reigns. I'll bring you a sharp take on the day's biggest stories, bombshell newsmaker interviews, and A-list guests. And I guarantee you, no spin, no bias, no censorship, and no reason to go to bed. That's Dan Wootton tonight, Monday to Thursdays from 9 on GB News.
My name's Tom Harwood, and every weekday we bring you The Briefing live from 9:30 a.m. The stories, analysis, and live debate that you need to hear.
Quite right, Tom, of course.
Was this something that had been considered at all? Difficult to answer.
Gas-guzzling helicopters circling. Noise is being made here.
Joe Biden walking out.
Thank you very much for joining us.
Don't miss it. The Briefing with me, Tom Harwood, Monday to Friday, 9:30 a.m. on GB News.
Join me, Gloria De Piero, Monday to Thursday at noon for The Briefing. We go to the parts of Parliament that you won't see elsewhere. Plus, there's exclusive interviews with MPs from all parties.
But quite often, they paper over the real truth. Why does a working class lad like you join the Tories?
That's a good question.
Don't miss it, Monday to Thursdays at noon on GB News.
Love your emails. They're coming in thick and fast in relation to various topics on tonight's show, including cigarettes. This from Jim Whitehouse. Mark, I couldn't agree more about the nanny state going mad in terms of banning cigarettes. Why do people think that they have a right to insist what people do in terms of vaccines or not do? Drugs, alcohol, nicotine. It's up to people what they put into their own bodies. Every time you attempt to compel something, you generate a group of people who think you're lying to them. This leads to a deeper and more dangerous societal divide. Tell people what you know and why you believe it to be so, and suggest they decide for themselves. Jim, bravo to that. Well said. More on smoking. Adrian says, Dear Mark, I gave up smoking 28 years ago. I immediately gained weight, finally gaining 50%, ending up with a BMI of 32 and type 2 diabetes. I am down to 24. Adrian, I'm really pleased you got the weight off. Congratulations, and well done for staying off the fags. How about this from Heather? Dear Mark, as a teenager, I took up smoking to get rid of a bad stammer. This took 2 years, but then I couldn't give up smoking. So 8 years later, I went to a hypnotist. I went in a smoker and came out a non-smoker, never looked back, no withdrawal symptoms. All of this was 45 years ago. It only works if you really want to. And finally, do we need a fourth jab has been a rolling topic in the show. Tony says, Dear Mark, I was hoodwinked by the propaganda with the first 2 jabs, but no more. I've had the Convid twice and it's no biggie. There you go, Tony. It's all about opinions, isn't it? And you won't be censored. Not on my watch. Thanks so much for that. OK, well, look, now we've got some more selfies. It is Selfie Sunday. So let's see what we've got. Well done to Tatiana and Nimrit and the team for getting these up and running. So let's have a look at Ash. Oh, there she is. Lovely Ash. Yes, I met her before last week's show, and what a treat. Fabulous lady. How about this? John and his son, Sydney. Oh. Well, let me tell you that Sydney is a chip off the old block. What a fine young man. A handsome devil, just like his dad. So bravo, John, and bravo, Sydney. The only thing that spoils that picture is me in the middle. Looks like I'm wearing a white jacket. I look
He has to say that.
I either look like John Travolta or a waiter on the Titanic. OK, well done, guys. How about this from Susan, Jasper and Monty? Oh, that's brilliant. I think it's Susan in the middle with a lot of furry friends. Susan, thank you for that. You've got a great collection of soft toys. Do you know one of my biggest regrets is not having my bear from childhood?
Oh.
Yeah, I think it went in a skip somewhere.
no.
Never to be seen again. Yeah. I've reconnected with bears later in life, mainly in central Soho, in the dead of night. How about this from Paul? Hey, Paul, I'm honoured. Look at that. You've got me. You've got Ingrid. Andre, Nikki and John Dicey, our smoking expert. And you're wearing a lovely Hawaiian T-shirt. You've got palm trees on your T-shirt.
Cannabis.
Oh, well, it could be. Listen, Paul, each to their own. What you put in your body is your right. Thanks for that one, Paul. And how about this? This is Alison's very stylish dog. Oh, that is another beauty. Look at that. Oh, I can't see too many pooch snaps, I've got to say. That's Alison's doggy wearing a pair of cool shades. And how about this? This is Nicolette. Oh, Nicolette, thank you, darling. I want to just give you a virtual kiss over the national airwaves. Thank you for that. Well, I'm loving your selfies. We'll try to do it next week as well. In fact, if we've got time, we'll squeeze a couple more in before the end of the show. mark@gbnews.uk. Send them in. Any we don't use tonight, we'll do them on Sunday's show. So let's get to our news agenda now with my fabulous panel. And it was great news, wasn't it, this week? After nearly 6 years of imprisonment in Iran, Nazanin Zaghari-Ratcliffe has been reunited with her family. She was accused of plotting to overthrow the Iranian government. Allegations she always denied. They were not true. It was a lie. Will she ever be able, though, to return to some kind of normality? What do we think about this, Nikki? Do you think she'll have trouble readjusting?
Yeah, I suspect she will. I mean, you know, she's been a prisoner for X amount of years. How many years is it now?
6.
6 years. And just the experiences she's had will be almost impossible to explain to other people around her, you know? Yeah. Even if she can tell them literally what happened, they won't possibly be able to empathise, probably. I think it's going to be very difficult. It's interesting because I know Terry Waite actually wrote a really beautiful piece for The Telegraph this week talking about what it was like for him to readjust.
He was a hostage for years,
He was a hostage for years, remember?
In Iraq?
I think that was Iraq.
Yeah.
I remember as a child growing up watching Terry Waite released on TV. It was such a big moment, wasn't it?
It was.
But I think he wrote a really memorable piece, which was all about you've got to. He said that somebody told him that if you try to adjust to real life or your new life too quickly, it was like coming up from the bottom of the sea. You would get the bends and it would kill you. And that what you have to do is go very, very slowly into your new everyday life. And he said that he lived by that advice and that was what helped get him through. And she'll be facing a lot of media requests as well, and perhaps she needs to go slowly with that too. I mean, I can understand why people wanted the picture, when, you know, she was first reunited with the family, and then there was that beautiful picture in the paper this weekend of her with her daughter baking. But, yeah, you sort of think, well, we've kind of reported on the story now, so should we just back off and give them their space and let them readjust? Yeah, I mean, how do you think she should go about reconnecting with the family? Do you think that she's still going to need, ironically, time by herself? Well, I'm sure she will. I mean, I am no expert. Going back into a crowded house 24/7, it could actually be a bit of a shock to the system. Well, isn't it a shock to anyone? Don't all of us need our private time? Well, it will be a shock to me, like, later when I get home. Exactly, you'll be hiding out in the... In the back room. Mrs. Dolan in the kitchen, sharpening the kitchen knives. But yeah, I mean, obviously, I couldn't possibly comment because I've never been in Nazanin's situation. Yeah. But, you know, I think it will take a period of adjustment and it probably will be a trickier road than anyone's imagining for. And also, you have children, of course. Quite a few children, haven't you? 4. You've got 4. That relationship with her little daughter will have been impacted by her absence. Yeah. And that re-entry won't be easy either. Not at all, because it's more than half of her daughter's life. Children are much more resilient. They adapt and adjust very much better than adults. Also, I think that Richard, Nazanin's husband, has probably, it sounds to me, he's been absolutely amazing. He's kept everything, the mother alive and the little girl's mind and everything. I don't know how much access they had to phone conversations or even perhaps Zoom. Yeah. But I think that eased off in the latter years. That's right. I think they had on and off intermittent contact. Yeah. She was under house arrest for a while and her daughter was able to visit her, but it's obviously not the same. No, obviously not the same, but I think that's probably helped rather than having 6 years of complete silence. But, you know, I was reading today as well, where they live, they're in a block of flats and it's a very, you know, tight-knit group and everything, and they're going to throw the mother of all parties for her to welcome her back. And I'm thinking that is such a big mistake. I know. She needs to have time to adjust, to get back into a different way of life. Also to get to know her husband. Yeah. You know, and him to accept this kind of stranger into the home. He's got his routine for 6 years. Yeah. He's built up a routine with the little girl. There'll be a team now, won't they? And it might be difficult. Yeah, but I think when mum sort of ticks her daughter off for being scruffy or late for school or not doing her homework. Or she won't tick her off. Yeah.
It's the other way around, and the father probably will. You know, he's just
Because of
keeping
that
it real.
dynamic.
Yeah, I think it's going to be very, very hard. I just hope they get through it. But
I mean, look, I'm sure, and I hope this won't happen, but there are actually examples of when people are reunited, the relationship doesn't always survive what they've been through.
Well, funny enough, you talked about Terry Waite. What was the name? Was it John
McCann, was it?
Yes, McCann.
Yeah.
And his girlfriend campaigned tirelessly for him.
Yeah.
And they were engaged, I think, before he was imprisoned, and when they came back, and that didn't last. It sounds awful, but they didn't have children.
John McCarthy.
McCarthy, that's right. I think that this couple are quite different. I think he's a very strong person. She's obviously very strong. And even if they're struggling, I'm sure that they will want to make it work for the sake of the daughter, if nothing else, because she's suffered enough, really.
Absolutely. What do you think, Andre?
Do you know, I don't know what I think for once in my life. And I'll tell you why. We all saw Richard round TV studios, and some people even said he looks like he's enjoying what he's doing. I think what he had was good grace and got on with it.
Correct.
And was a real workhorse. So here must be the weird thing, and this is why I don't understand it. So there's this big event, you get off the plane, suddenly Richard doesn't have 10 interviews tomorrow.
Yes, you're right.
Like, she's no longer chained up or whatever it was.
Someone else is going to empty the dishwasher.
And then the door closes. And you sort of think, apart from putting on the Mark Dolan show, you just think, well, you know, sort of what's next? And I just don't know what I would do in that situation. It's not a bad thing necessarily, but, you know, you just think his phone must go at 6 in the morning. No, I don't need to be on GBNews. I don't need to be on Sky. I don't need to speak to the BBC or the Daily Telegraph.
Well, the fight is won. That's the thing. The fight is won.
Yes.
She's back now. That's the important thing.
But you alluded to this. That has been his life, that campaign. And his life has now been taken from him in a bizarre way. Now, of course, her life's been given back to her. But that growing apart
But you do wonder that sort of like during that 6 years, it's been the fight that it's like, phew, finally I've won. So I don't think that side of it is going to be too hard. I think it's just getting to know each other again and the routine and with the little girl.
I think it really depends on the person, to be honest. And I also think in her case, it depends on the treatment, because the thing was, like we were saying before, there were times when actually she was under house arrest with her mum and dad, probably wasn't that bad, enormously frustrating. Other times she was straight up in prison, in solitary confinement. I think one thing they did do was psychologically torture her, because she didn't know from one day to the next what was going to happen, and that's got to have been very difficult.
It's got to have been. Do you think, Andre, the media owe a duty of care to Nazanin and her family to back off at this stage?
Well, I've got to be honest with you. I mean,
they're not going to, are they?
Well, the thing is, if she wants £250,000, she's going to have to phone the Sunday newspapers. You know, we're all sitting there thinking, I wouldn't do it. And they think, how much? How much? I'll be right there. I think that there will be. They will do what they believe.
I mean, there will be the mother of all book deals, won't there? And newspaper serialisation.
The thing is, for some people, the book deal is just a ghostwriter and £500,000. For other people, it's cathartic. I just think it does vary from person to person.
Yeah, but do you think that the media should tread carefully? I mean, if you were the editor of a Red Top, would you be sending your hacks down to...
of course you would,
I have to say, if I was...
I hope they'll say yes.
If I was Richard, I would say to myself, hey, look, if the media had not been interested in my wife, she'd probably still be in prison.
Oh, but that's a terrible thing to say to O.
Well, yeah, but the thing is, how many other people are banged up abroad and nobody cares about? Right, you know, this
was very different, because actually Boris put his foot in it as well, because he really caused the problem by saying that she was...
I disagree with that. What if she had been training journalists in Iran? What if she'd been completely guilty of what Boris accused her of? You know, the idea that training journalists is something that should be a criminal offence with 10 years in prison, they're the nutters, not Boris Johnson.
But we know from press freedom, or the lack of it around the world, that's how loads of countries think anyway. That's reality.
I agree. But when you say Boris put his foot in it, they put the foot in it for a stupid law. I appreciate it's maybe a semantic difference at this point, but...
Well, speaking of semantics, this is a great lead-in to our next subject, which is another fascinating one. By the way, I just endlessly love getting your emails, and you're so astute, all of you, when you jump into the conversation. And this from... who is it? It's R. DeWitt, who says, Dear Mark... Terry Waite, CBE, is 82 and still going strong and running the organisation Hostage UK. Well, thank you so much for giving us an update on what the great Terry Waite is up to. He is a true hero. Now, linguists are saying that we should not correct children if they use poor grammar in their speech. These specialists say that correcting people could be regarded as accent prejudice. The debate comes after a number of schools have banned certain words and phrases in an attempt to improve pupils' ability to express themselves clearly and accurately. They include Ark All Saints Academy in Camberwell, South London, where students are corrected for saying basically at the end of sentences. You know, basically this, basically that. Or for using words such as cuss, which is an Americanism for swearing, and phrases including oh my days and OMG.
What's wrong with that?
Well, it's slang,
overused, isn't it?
I hate those people who talk around and go, know what I'm saying? No, I don't. Because like this and like that.
Let's imagine there was a school debate about politics and one of the pupils said, Boris Johnson ain't a good Prime Minister. Should that be corrected?
Yes.
Why? Surely that pupil has got their message across. He ain't a good Prime Minister, mate.
And language evolves, and people have said that the TH is going to change into an F over time.
My son can't say TH anyway, so that's...
Yeah, a lot of people do.
But the thing is, Mark, if language didn't change and it really mattered that we preserve it, then we'd still be speaking like Chaucer. And actually, really interestingly, Chaucer himself had this whole debate about whether people said eggies or Aaron in different counties because they argued about what eggs were called and could they communicate with each other. So the point is, if we're understood, then that's what matters. And also, think about there's a difference between spoken language and written language. So I absolutely fully understand if something that a child is saying in their spoken language is creeping into their written, that needs correcting because it's not standard English.
Yes.
If it's just about expression. I mean, one of the things I really rue is the fact that when I was a child in Yorkshire, all the dialect we used was stripped out of us. So I don't remember hardly any of the Yorkshire dialect I knew as a child, and it was beautiful and rich.
Oh, it wasn't.
And lyrical.
No, but it's just
really sad that we don't preserve that.
People.
I mean, no, it was much more complex than that. One of the phrases was, you warm than a witch and a
But it wasn't slang.
Wait.
No, it wasn't slang. It was its own dialect.
Let's hear
That's the big difference.
But slang is a form of dialect as well. Dialect is about how you speak with other people.
It's a dialect accent, but it's not slang.
Dialect and accent are different. Accent's how you speak, dialect's the words you use.
It's the language.
That's the difference.
So give me that bit of Yorkshire again.
You warm than a witch and a what Baxton.
Oh, well, speak for yourself.
Anybody know what that means? Then I'm going to email in. I'd love to find out.
This reminds me, I used to get on my school bus, and every single day, the bloke used to say to me, here you go on, buffoon goons. And I used to go, ha, 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 and walked off. The last day of school, I went, what is it you're actually saying? And somebody translates it. You get on the bus every day with pound coins. And I just used to give him to him. He wanted 50p. I mean, as if you'd care.
Well, you're one witch and what Baxton means, you're worse than a witch on a hot stove. And it's when you're wriggling around and you won't sit still. So it refers to the old witch trials. It's a very old piece of language.
Oh, see, that's lovely. I like charming.
But I don't think that's the same as bad grammar. So.
No, but I think it's really important to distinguish between prejudice just because you don't like how someone's speaking and what else is that? Is it classist? Or prejudice because you can't understand them? And
Possibly.
like I said, the difference between spoken and written English is absolutely paramount.
Let's imagine you're having this politics discussion and you say Boris Johnson ain't a good Prime Minister.
Which is exactly what Tony Blair would have said if he brought all that estuary English into
It's true, he did. He pretended to be working class.
Yeah.
But I would correct that child and I would say the Prime Minister, Boris Johnson, is not a good Prime Minister.
It depends on the audience,
Well, what I worry for our future youngsters is how well they will do in life, that if they do speak in this very casual slang way and they're using bad grammar, perhaps their life opportunities will be curtailed.
But the point is that we all use different varieties of language depending on our audience. So if that child is saying it to you casually, you know, in a casual environment, then it's not wrong. If they're saying it in a public debate that's about winning kind of their competition around the standard, different.
I've got a friend who was in the military, and one day apparently at Windsor Castle they were having all of the Lord Lieutenants over, and Prince William said to this bloke, I'm going to have to put on my posh voice tonight. My gran's got all the posh people over. Genius.
My God.
Yes. But there is that.
Man of the people.
But they say that actually, and probably very much true with the royal family, it's simpatico.
Yes.
Because if you are all la-da-da, you
don't connect with people.
No, so it's simpatico to kind of like speak at their level. But it is fundamentally fundamentally wrong. If we can just say and speak properly, it doesn't matter how we say it. It's not the ancient thing. But, I think this is coming through the texts. Because
on your
text is... Yeah. And that now, from what was the text that was quick, has now become the speak.
But we've always had slang since we use words. It's thousands of years old.
But now it's got worse. But it has got
evolved. It's just evolved. It's just
But isn't there a difference? I think we can all agree.
Down more and more.
Accents are wonderful across the
length and
breadth of the land, and
you can tell where
to be
comes from.
enthusiastically welcome. If it's a Belfast accent, Liverpool accent, Glasgow, Cardiff, you name it, wonderful. London, but it's just that we have the structure of a language, which yes evolves, especially language,
which is written versus spoken, and that's the difference. Because we all have an idiolect, which is made up of all the words that only we use, and isn't that part of the variety and the gorgeousness of how people speak and how we interact?
But can't you have, let's say, a Cockney accent but with correct grammar?
You can have standard syntax, but you can also have a kind of like fluent, slangy syntax which other people understand, and you write in a standard way. Isn't it? Because if you can adopt the register you use for the right audience, that's everything. Because the way you speak to your gran, the way you speak to lads down the pub is not the way you speak to the Prime Minister. Those things are all different.
It's just such a shame that you don't have one standard so you can speak to everybody using
that same standard. It's called standard English. It's called LP.
I'm saying about the simpatico, but I do think it's wrong that that is the accepted level, and then after that it goes down.
There are very few countries in the world that have as many historic accents as the United Kingdom. It is an amazing thing. Even in small places, Liverpool and Manchester, very different to each other, but absolutely next door.
OK, fair enough. Well, I've got to say, I've had a load of all that rubbish. A load of old crap. We've got one final chunk of the show because we're going to play a game show. It's called The Wokest Link. Find out why after this, plus a couple more selfies.
Yeah.
GB News is the UK's home of discussion and debate.
From all perspectives.
To stay up to date on the latest stories,
make sure that you subscribe to the GB News channel.
Right here on YouTube.
You can watch us live 24/7 across the whole world.
You can also check out exclusive content and catch up on previous episodes of your favourite shows.
Every day, we ask the questions
that you'd ask. So why not add your voice to the conversation in the comments section?
Don't forget to subscribe. We are GB News, Britain's news channel.
Every night at 11 on GB News, we bring you the next day's stories the day before.
It's basically like time travel.
If it's a big story, we'll cover it, guaranteed. But we'll also have some fun along the way.
Big opinions, big laughs. Sometimes big hair.
This is
Headliners, the paper review show that won't send you to sleep like the others will.
11 p.m, 7 nights a week. Join us.
Hello there, I'm Eamon Holmes.
And I'm Isabel Webster.
And we hope you can join us for
Breakfast with Eamon
and Isabel.
You make me laugh out loud, belly laugh.
Is that important first thing in the morning?
Yeah, absolutely.
And there's me trying to be deadly serious. News is a serious business.
Yeah, I have to rein you in sometimes.
Well, it doesn't stop us laughing at it. It doesn't stop us having an opinion on what's going on.
Yeah.
And it certainly will not stop us reflecting what you think.
Weekdays from 6 to 9:30 on GB News.
I'm Dan Wootton. Join me Monday to Thursday from 9 to 11 for the feistiest and most fun news debate on TV, where free speech reigns. I'll bring you a sharp take on the day's biggest stories, bombshell newsmaker interviews, and A-list guests. And I guarantee you, no spin, no bias, no censorship, and no reason to go to bed. That's Dan Wootton Tonight, Monday to Thursdays from 9 on GB News.
We're about to play the Great British Game Show. You can't shut my panel up, by the way. you can tell, can't you, that they get paid.
Sorry.
They get paid to talk. Let's have a look at some more Sunday selfies. This is Dave.
Come on, Dave.
Fine figure of a man. Look at that. That's a proper beard.
His head's on upside down.
No, listen, don't you ever go at my Dave. He is an Adonis. How about this? Lovely Jennifer. Oh, Jennifer, it's so good we showed it twice.
I want Richard back. I love him.
How about this? Connor and his cat. Oh, Connor, what a...
I think I've got that hair colour myself, actually.
That is a bond.
Yeah.
Isn't it? That is a bond of trust.
Yeah. Like that.
And Ice Cream is the name of the cat. Ice Cream is very happy, nuzzling on Connor's shoulder. Thank you for that, Connor. How about this? This is Sue's dog, Fred.
Cute.
Fred Winston, who's got a coquettish look on his face. I'm not sure he agrees with my big opinion monologue. He thinks it's rough. How about this? Tamsin's cat, Milo. Oh,
living the dream.
Living the dream. Not the first viewer that I've sent to sleep. Thank you so much. Loved your selfies. Should we do it again next weekend?
Yes.
I think we should, definitely.
Yeah.
Thanks for that, folks. Peter Hitchens, big fan of him. Of course, he's a male online columnist.
He's a male.
He's a male. He, him. Well, he's been in the studio talking to us here on GB News, but he's been highlighting the wokeness of University Challenge. And what does woke mean? Extreme political correctness. He says the game show panders to a generation starved of general knowledge. Here's a clip.
So picture bonus is coming up. The Great Basin is the largest example in North America of an endorheic basin. That is a watershed area out of which no water can flow to the sea. For your bonuses, 3 more of the world's largest endorheic basins. 5 points for each you can identify. Firstly,
Righty-ho. Tibet? No, it's not about Tibet. We could say that, the Tibetan Plateau. Tibetan Plateau, river, is it? Yeah. But yeah, okay, Tibetan Plateau.
It's the Tarim Basin.
Well, don't want to be unkind about my colleagues, but surely that would send anyone to sleep. Peter Hitchens calls University Challenge a finger-wagging, politically correct bore obsessed with far from general questions about specialised area of science and mathematics. Well, that's why we're going to play a great British game show of our own. It's called the Wokest Link. That's right, the wokest game show in the country. And let's start with this question, number 1. How old is Greta Thunberg?
18.
21.
Oh.
19 is the right answer.
Do I get it for getting closest?
Yeah, get half point.
You didn't
Half
push
point.
19.
You didn't push
Okay.
in.
Well, no, we didn't.
Oh,
my goodness.
Stay focused, because we haven't got long.
Right, go on.
Name the tweeter based on the following. Whatever you feel about Tony Blair and yes, Iraq will forever stain his reputation.
George Galloway.
Let's have a look. It was Gary Lineker.
Oh.
Gary
Same
Lineker
difference.
backing
But not
Tony
bad.
Blair. How about this one? If a person was to say they're having their period, how would you describe their gender?
Person who menstruates.
It is a person who bleeds.
Oh, bleeds, sorry.
It's not a woman. Don't say woman, that will get you cancelled. How about this? How much does throwing a statue of a slave trader into a river cause to rising sea levels?
Oh, I thought you were going to say how much were they punished, Knob?
Well, the answer is depends on the weight of the statue. Which year did McDonald's switch to mushy paper straws?
29. I've got no idea. 2019.
Lower. 2018. How about this? What is the alternative word used to describe breastfeeding to be inclusive?
Chest feeding.
It's chest feeding.
Oh,
And we're done.
No.
I'm not going to get my boobs out. Thanks to my brilliant panel and you at home. See you soon.
Good God. Good God.
I'm Mark Dolan. Join me at 11 on GB News for Headliners, in which I'll be joined by 2 of the UK's top comedians discussing tomorrow's papers. If it's an important story, we'll cover it, but we'll have some fun along the way. Headliners, the late-night paper review that won't send you to sleep.